Got a new notebook now.
I got plenty, but it's at home.
I'm ready.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. We have agendas that are on the podium by the back door if you want to follow along. Tonight, the second Tuesday of the month, is always kind of our special night to do our work session. So we're going to go ahead and go through our agenda, and then we'll adjourn officially, but then we'll continue on to our work session items. So it's a little weird, but if you're here for recycling, just kind of hold back because we'll still be going on. Okay, so first up we have our proclamations. First of all, we're going to proclaim the month of October to be Meet the Blind Month, and Sunday, October 15th, as White Cane Safety Day. So we have an official here with us.
Hi, Rob. Ms. Stewart, good to see you.
Hi, Rob. That was
Good to see you.
Hi, Rob, this is Lisa.
Hi, Lisa, good to see you too.
That's the water.
Let's see, is there you're not using mics, I guess?
Oh, I'm sorry. I brought them all the way.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. So we should go back to the podium. You want the podium?
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'm sorry. Where's the podium?
I know that.
Now we're cooking.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Rob Tabor. I am at 1234 Tennessee here in Lawrence, and I'm coming to you tonight on behalf of the National Federation of the Blind State Affiliate and Jayhawk Chapter, of which I happen to be the president and first vice president of our state affiliate as well. The National Federation of the Blind, of which I am one of 50,000 proud members, believes that blindness is not the characteristic that holds a blind person back from achieving their dreams. We have on our website a motto, a slogan, whatever you want to call it, that is the result of some recent rebranding that we did a few years back, and it says, "Live the life you want." And the characteristics that hold us back from really living the lives we want are the prejudices and misconceptions that much of the public holds about blindness, placing more limitations on us than we really have. And certainly by the blind themselves, who have been conditioned to live a life based on low expectations. We of the National Federation of the Blind are in the business of shattering the soft bigotry of low expectations. This was a term used by President Bush, Bush 41, back in 1990, in acknowledging the celebration of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We come today in recognition of Meet the Blind Month and White Cane Awareness Day, which I believe on the paperwork says White Cane Safety Day, but we'll change that next year. That happens to be October 15th, which commemorates the passage of the resolution putting forth the Model White Cane Act, which has now been adopted by all 50 states and by the District of Columbia, granting the legal right-of-way for street crossings and intersection crossings by a blind person using a visible white cane, such as the one I carry today, or by using a guide dog. Madam Mayor, I would like to invite you to come to our state convention. We are having that in the second weekend of November, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I'd like to have you come on November 11th to address us at the Doubletree by Hilton, formerly the Holiday Inn Convention Center, in case you might wonder where that is. I'd like to have you address and give us a welcome folks from across our fair state into our fair city of Lawrence. Love to have you come. Also want to mention that on October 24th, we will be doing a screening that is free and open to the public at the Lawrence Public Library in the auditorium. We'll be screening a film called Do You Dream in Color? And it is about the lives of several young people who have very ambitious plans regarding careers, overseas travel, athletic pursuits, etc. The event will run from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Again, that's at the Lawrence Public Library at 707 Vermont in the auditorium. Love to see you, all of you commissioners and anyone else there as well. It is free and open to the public. This is the first time we've done something like this and very much looking forward to the event. And at this time, I will stand for questions should you have any.
Do you have any questions? Okay, excellent. Well, I'll go ahead and read Proclamation now. It'll have the older language, I guess, so we'll get it fixed next year. All right, whereas the National Federation of the Blind was founded in 1940 to end discrimination against the blind and to secure first-class citizenship for all blind persons, and whereas today the Federation, representing more than 50,000 members across the country, continues to work to secure equal rights and opportunities for the blind, and whereas the National Federation of the Blind works to change attitudes about blindness by providing information about blindness to parents, teachers, school administrators, to business, political, social, and civic leaders, and to the general public, and whereas, since blind people and blindness are still frequently misunderstood, the National Federation of the Blind has developed a public education campaign, Meet the Blind Month, to create opportunities for the people of Kansas and people everywhere to learn firsthand that blind people are basically like everyone else. Now therefore I, Leslie Soden, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, do hereby proclaim the month of October to be Meet the Blind Month and October 15th to be White Canes Safety Day in Lawrence. Thanks so much for coming today to let us know about this. And I will do my best to be there on November 11th.
Will do.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go on to our next proclamation to proclaim the week of October 9th through 14th as Haskell Indian Nations University Week. Do we have officials here? Come on up and tell us all about it.
Good evening. Dr. Eric Anderson. I teach in the Indigenous and American Indian Studies program at Haskell Indian Nations University. Mayor Soden, City Commissioners, staff, I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity to be here and recognizing this proclamation that you will read for us presently. It's always nice to have a moment to reflect on the long history of Haskell, to think about the connections between the city and our school. I'd like to invite everyone as we move through this week and up to this weekend to come out and join us for our homecoming festivities on Friday evening and on Saturday, for additional guests and events that are part of the homecoming and alumni celebration, as well as our second annual Experience Haskell event, which is a public showcase to point out the amazing work that our students do, to have a chance for the community to come and visit with us and learn more about our cultures, our institution, our history, and our ongoing revitalization. We have several Haskell students with us here tonight, as well as faculty and staff. And again, I would just like to thank you very much for recognizing the place of Haskell Indian Nations University in this community and its 130-plus year history.
Excellent. Did people want to come up for a picture or anything like that? Did they want to speak? The other faculty and students? You're welcome to if you like
Put
to.
them on the spot.
Excellent. I don't know. I think
You want to take a picture?
you guys want to? Come on up and you guys stand in front and we'll get pictures with you. And then we'll do the proclamation.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We'll just go down and stand together.
Do you want to go stand down?
Let's just stand.
Okay.
Go up there.
I'm hiding behind you. I'm going to put this up on Twitter. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. I should wear purple today. I didn't think about it.
I've just been reminded that I should tell everyone that this is our 91st homecoming year. We started
Excellent.
in 1926 with the dedication of our memorial stadium. And it was one of the biggest events in the history of this town.
So that's this Friday?
That's this Friday.
At what time?
Begins the homecoming parade at 4 p.m.
Excellent.
And then there'll be some other events that evening, and then on Saturday, starting at 9 a.m. and going till 5.
Perfect.
Okay?
Okay, well, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas originally established as the United States Indian Industrial Training School in 1884 as a boarding school and evolving into a post-high school vocational technical institution in 1935, Haskell began offering junior college curriculum and became Haskell Indian Junior College in 1970. And whereas Haskell Indian Nations University was established in 1993, currently representing over 130 federally recognized tribes from throughout the United States. And whereas Haskell is a unique and diverse intertribal university committed to the advancement of sovereignty. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm so sorry. Self-determination and the inherent rights of tribes. And whereas Haskell will hold its alumni homecoming events October 13th and 14th, and its Lawrence community event, Experience Haskell, on Saturday, October 14th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., in recognition of Haskell's significance to Indigenous communities and in recognition of its place within and connection to the city of Lawrence. And whereas the city of Lawrence recognizes its long and historic relationship with Indigenous peoples of Lawrence, celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday, October 9th. Now therefore I, Leslie Soden, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, do hereby proclaim the week of October 9th through 14th as Haskell Indian Nations University Week in the City of Lawrence. Thank you. Come on up. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
It's a word I read a lot, but I don't think I've ever said it out loud. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the consent agenda. All matters listed below on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Members of the public wishing to speak to an item that has been pulled off the consent agenda will be limited to 3 minutes for public comments. All right. Is there an item that a member of the commission wishes to remove? Okay, is there an item on the consent agenda that a member of the public wishes to remove?
Number 7.
Number 7. Okay, any other items? Okay, so with the exclusion of number 7 and with the addition of claims for a total of $4,463,757.01, total vendor count for 230 vendors, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
So motion made by Commissioner Larson, seconded by Commissioner Amix. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, so number 7, let's read that one. Authorize the city manager to submit a letter of support for a grant application for interpretive historic signage for the Grover Barn facility located at 2819 Stone Barn Terrace, a site of the Underground Railroad as proposed by the Watkins Museum of History. Did you want to come up and let us know why you wanted that one pulled?
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. I'm Dustin Stumbling Bear, 211 Mount Hope Court. Just wanted to pull this item so I can make a comment regarding, I'm glad you're willing to put forward a motion of support for this item, especially considering the national conversation we are having regarding memorials and monuments to this nation's history. And with the proclamation we just made regarding Haskell Indian Nations University, I wanted to say thank you again for recognizing the contributions for Lawrence in helping fight slavery, and especially recognizing the contributions of John Brown, who I'll admit is a personal hero. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion by commissioners? Okay, I'll move that we go ahead and authorize the city manager to submit a letter of support for a grant application for interpretive historic signage for the Grover Barn facility located at 2819 Stone Barn Terrace. Is there, okay, motion made by Mayor Soden, seconded by Commissioner Amix. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, so now we're on to public comment. The public is allowed to speak to any items or issues that are not scheduled on the agenda after first being recognized by the mayor. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for public comment. As a general practice, the commission will not discuss, debate these items, nor will the commission make decisions on items presented during this time. Rather, they will refer the items to staff for follow-up if necessary. Individuals are asked to come to the microphone, sign in, and state their name and address. Speakers should address all comments, questions to the commission. All right, so public comment. Anyone want to discuss an item? Come on up to the microphone, and we'd appreciate it if you sign in and state your name for the people watching at home.
Sign in here.
Yeah, there should be a sign-in sheet up there, please. Thank you. Let me pass this down.
Hello, my name is Adrian Malat. I live at 921 West 20th Terrace in Lawrence. I'm here to speak on the type of public lighting we are installing, representing the Lawrence Alliance for Responsible Lighting. The city is doing a major replacement using lights with a color temperature of about 4,000 Kelvin. This project is nearly done, and it is too late to change the installation without ripping them all out as they are doing in Davis, California. Lights with a higher color temperature look whiter, but contain a large fraction of blue light. Research going back more than 30 years has implicated nighttime exposure to blue light in problems for people and animals, including insomnia, cancer, mood disturbances, and others, probably due to its effect on melatonin production in the body. It causes glare problems in the eyes of older persons and worse visibility due to scattering in times of fog, rainfall, and so forth. Because LED lights have become cost-effective, installation of the first generation of 4,000K daylight lights is underway. The new use of these lights caused the American Medical Association to release a 2016 statement recommending that outdoor LED lights be limited to 3,000K, corresponding to what many people would call warm white light. Discussions with Westar have shown that they have no inclination to shift their practice. One may speculate that they want to be sure to place their existing stock of 4,000K lights before they become unwanted. Recently, Prairie Village replaced streetlights with 3,000K LEDs. Public Works Director Keith Bredhoff said, "We went with 3,000K as we knew several council members were aware of the AMA article and guidelines. There was no price difference between 3,000K and 4,000K lights. We installed 5 3,000K lights to test them out and felt they looked great, so we went with the 3,000K lights. We are very happy with the almost 1,800 we have installed citywide." So specifically, we ask that the Lawrence City Commission place on its agenda an item to direct Westar to, in the future, install public lighting with a color temperature of 3,000K or less, and to direct light downward, be dimmable, and other measures as may be recommended by city planners. Thank you. I have a handout with some background information on it and a copy of my comments, which I'll provide.
Thank you, Adrian. We'll have the city manager take a look at it.
Let me give you an extra copy.
Here's the extra copy for Tom.
Oops. All right, any other public comment? Thank you, Adrian.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'd like to reiterate on this lighting. Just happened to be, a gentleman was here tonight to make that presentation, but all the lighting that we've had replaced in North Lawrence with those LED lights, every one of them, I have had to personally call Westar, and they've got an individual, one guy that comes over and takes care of those lights, and we have had to have every one that is installed toned down and also put shields on them to direct the light straight down. The residents were very upset, and then I get phone calls about this white light that shines, and they can't sit on their porches and things like that. And one example is there at Third and Elm, when they changed it over from the old style lighting to the LED lighting. I want to tell you, it made that whole intersection and half the block like daylight, and called Westar over, and they dimmed it down and also put a shield on it so it was straight down. Another one is in the middle of the block of the 700 block. They changed one out, and the residents immediately called me, had to call Westar, and they had to go over there and dim it down and also shield it. So this lighting, it might be cheaper to operate it, but I want to tell you, they put it in there, and they put it on the max when they first put them up there, and you have to call them to come back and dim them down to make it so that it's such a glare. So anyway, they do it, and I've got this gentleman's name, and I call him, real nice guy. He comes over, and why they don't do that when they first install them, instead of we having to call them to get them adjusted. So I'd just like to tell you that we're having a problem with every one that's been installed in North Lawrence. We don't have a lot of them but they're slowly, as the other ones burn out or whatever, Westar comes over and puts the new LEDs in, and then I have to turn around and call them to come back over and dim them down and direct the light straight down. So if we could do something and have the city call Westar and say, hey, install these things with 3,000 Ks instead of, I don't know what they are, but, and shield them, we sure would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Excuse me, Ted.
testimony. Mhm.
Ted, just want to clarify, was that the middle of the 700 block of Elm?
Yes, yes.
It was Elm,
It's
right?
middle of the block, and we've got several of those middle of the block lights because our blocks are so long, you know, but yeah, when we had it installed, man, I got 3 phone calls the next day.
Thank you for the testimony, Ted.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? This is for items not on the agenda. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down to commission items. Do commissioners have any items they'd like to discuss? Okay, so city manager's report, we've got none. Calendar, I got an invitation today to participate in the disaster prep
I stood up.
exercise on October 19th. Perhaps we might need to add that one to the calendar.
We can forward the email to you if you didn't get it, but, yep, I'll do that right now.
Any other items to add on the calendar? Okay, so now technically we're ready to adjourn. So I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mayor Soden, seconded by Commissioner Herbert. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So now we're on to our work session agenda. The work session provides an opportunity for the City Commission to discuss items in greater detail. As a general practice, the Commission will not make decisions on items presented during this time. Rather, they will refer the items to staff for follow-up if necessary. Public comment related to the work session topics will be allowed at the end of the discussion on each item. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for public comment. So, we only have one item on our work session agenda, and that's to talk about commercial recycling.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Kathy Richardson, and I'm the Solid Waste Division Manager. I did want to point out a few people that are in this room that may be able to help answer some questions. We've got our Public Works Director, Chuck Souls. Jamie Schwartz is one of our Solid Waste Operations Supervisors. We've got also Charlie Sedlock with Ham Waste Services. He's the Director. And to my left, I've got Mr. McCullough. He will be able to answer some of the planning related questions. So I am pretty excited to kick off your trash talking work session tonight. As many of you know, I love trash talking. And I do have a lot of information to cover. I wanted to provide some background and kind of all that moving and shaking that's been going on over the last 5 years with the Solid Waste Division. So bear with me as I just go over really quickly some of that background information and then some of the information that really is important to know in regards to our contract for the single stream material because all that plays a role with commercial single stream recycling. So there's definitely going to be some just background information, some additional details for you to know, and then our conversation on commercial single stream and what the options are currently for our commercial customers as well. The overview, again, background, Solid Waste Task Force, City Ham recycling contract, update on the single stream recycling markets, the division work items from 2017, so what we've been working on this year, which is really important to get us in a good position for commercial single stream. And then commercial recycling challenges and the next steps. And please, if you do have any questions as I go through this material, let me know. I can pause and go over some of the information. So again, the Solid Waste Division provides comprehensive solid waste management services in a growing university community. We are a highly transient population, and for those of you who don't know, we have been the exclusive trash service provider for both our residential and commercial customers since 1946, so 71 years. I'm going to quickly go through some of our services. So for our residential customers, we have collection of trash, recycling, and yard waste. Both trash and yard waste are weekly collections, and recycling is every other week. We do also offer bulky item pickup, as well as 5 tires per household per year. If a resident has more tires than that, there's a small fee. We do have a household hazardous waste drop-off. That program actually saw some huge improvements in the last year because we did open up a new facility on Kresge, and residents are really loving the new drop-off. We also coordinate and have some recycling drop-offs throughout the community. So these are those bins that you see out there for corrugated cardboard, newspaper, mixed paper, glass, and so forth. We actually, a few years ago, when we were talking about implementation of residential single stream recycling, talked about phasing out those drop-off recycling bins, and we haven't removed them all. They've actually been filling up. The ones that we have removed in some of the popular locations have been from the request of the host. So Hy-Vee on 6th Street was a big one, and then just recently Hillcrest removed the bins there.
Excuse me, Kath. Have you sought new locations to replace those that you've lost?
We have not sought to find new locations for cardboard, mixed paper, and newspaper. Although they're still filling up, they're filling up at a slower pace. So right now what's happening is just the fewer locations are now getting the bulk, so it's more efficient collection at those. But we are looking for a location for the Ripple glass bin that was removed from Hillcrest. So we do have a contract with Ripple, and we have the 4 locations, and we want to continue to have those 4 locations, so we're actively in conversation with a new host right now.
Great, thank you.
We also have a brush and yard waste drop-off, so in addition for us collecting it at curbside, on Saturdays residents can drop off brush and yard waste at our compost facility for a small fee. And we have compost and wood chips available. That's very popular with Lawrence residents.
Kathy, talking about the service that we have there, earlier in the year, it was necessary that we make changes in our overall service because of sustainability questions in the program itself. How are we doing on the sustainability of our program and making sure that it's paying for itself, and all the changes that we've made in trash pickup?
Sure. And I do have a section in my presentation to go over the 2017 updates that we have.
Fine, thank you.
Commercial customers, so we provide trash collection. We also have roll-off service. Those are multi-lift boxes and roll-off boxes up to a 40-yard container. We provide cardboard and office paper recycling to our commercial customers, and I will talk about that a little bit more later on in the conversation when we reach kind of what are the current options for our commercial customers. And business hazardous waste drop-off. So a business does have to qualify for the program. The parameters are set by KDHE, the Department of Health and Environment, the Bureau of Waste Management, and we have a permit through them to operate that household hazardous waste facility. So there's a lot of details into that program, but there are businesses in town using that. And then again, they have the brush and yard waste drop-off available to them, not only on Saturdays, but we do have a lot of landscaping companies in town that have usage permits to come into the compost facility and drop off their materials each day. And just very quickly, we have other services. We have a big program and emphasis on outreach and education within the solid waste division, as well as some special events. So some of the bigger ones are the Earth Day Parade and Celebration that we put on at South Park for the community, and the electronic recycling events are very popular. And the holiday toy drive on here is employee initiated. A few years ago, the employees had started this program where they collected toys during the last two yard waste collection days of the year, and those toys were donated to the Blue Santa program. So it's a really nice, neat effort to get more toys during the holiday season. Included this slide, we recently had a survey completed, the city did, and the solid waste division received a 93% satisfaction rating from those residents that were surveyed. And I don't include this slide to pat myself or ourselves on the back for it. I always include it and talk about it because the true kind of communication to this is that although we have great services that we're extremely proud of, and we have some really hardworking staff in our solid waste division, there's always room for improvement. I give a lot of presentations in the community, and the two questions I ask at the beginning are, from my audience, who is satisfied with their solid waste services? And, everybody puts their hand up. And then I say, keep your hands up if you feel like there's some improvements to be made in our services. And almost everybody puts their hand down. And I'm like, that's not a trick question. It really, truly is. There's always room for improvement, and we continue to. That's our focus. If we're thinking about implementing a new program, well, how can we do what we're doing now better or more efficient so we can have those resources to be able to expand to other services? All right, so Solid Waste Task Force. Again, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. Some of you were on the commission during this time, and others, it was a very big public conversation. The City Commission formed the Solid Waste Task Force back in February of 2011. They had 1 year, appointed some citizens. The mayor actually sat on that Solid Waste Task Force as well to develop a long list of long-term solid waste service options for this community. And the report was presented in 1 year later, after 19 meetings. They were working really hard on that. So I'm going to go through them very quickly and just kind of show you where we've checked off, because this has been something that's been the driving force of where we focused all our attention. So again, they just confirmed they wanted us to continue to collect residential trash and yard waste weekly, which we did. Increase automation of services by using city-provided carts for trash collection. Many of you will know that in 2012, our residents could set out trash in anything, just a bag on the ground. They could set their trash in a trash can that they bought from a hardware store. They could rent a cart from the city, so we did have about 6,000 residents that were renting carts from us. So it's a kind of a variety, and not only that, some residents just put out one trash bag while others put out 25 trash bags. So we did containerize our trash collection. Then they also recommended implementing pricing options that charge residents for the collection of trash based on the amount they throw away. We call this a variable rate pricing system, where we have the 3 different cart sizes. The standard cart size for trash is a 65. If you upgrade to the 95, it's $2 extra on your monthly bill. If you can go down to the 35-gallon trash cart, then it's a $1.50 reduction from that standard size. In addition, those residents that produce more than a 95-gallon cart do have a second or third cart that they pay for. They also recommended to implement curbside recycling program for all residential customers, which we have done. And in that process, they talked about the request for proposals. We went through that process. And 3 items here that they also discussed. One was glass recycling. There's a lot of discussion at that time in regards to whether the single stream program was going to include glass or not. So the task force members wanted to make sure that this community had glass recycling options. So if it wasn't going to be included, that there was drop-offs. And at this time, the city was already in conversation with Ripple Glass, and we had signed a contract with them. So even though our single stream does include glass, we already had the Ripple Glass bins here in town. So it's just kind of added recycling. The task force members also talked about organic material composting. Big focus on education, so there's a lot of composting that can be done at home in your backyard, and our division does sell backyard composting bins, and we provide that education to our residents. And also increased diversion, so just trying to get more material, not only the yard waste, but there was some conversation about when does food waste get collected, and so that's kind of another one of those programs that we're looking in the future to expand. And that's for both residential and commercial. And the third item they talked about is the household hazardous waste disposal long-range plan. At the time, we were co-located with Douglas County Public Works Yard on 23rd Street, and the site was small. We operated by appointment, and the task force members wanted us to explore the possibility of still having a sustainable program, but one that was a little bit more user-friendly, so without having to call and make an appointment to drop off at the facility. So the city had been working for the Solid Waste Task Force for the last 4 years to figure out how we could provide the service and be a little bit more available with some open hours. One thing that we knew we needed is to be co-located with our other facilities and our staff around that facility. So the Kresge property was purchased by the Solid Waste Division for the purpose of moving our household hazardous waste facility as well as our other operations to that site, and then being able to open that facility and being more available to our customers. That plan with moving with that property has been postponed, and there's kind of a larger conversation of how we can consolidate our operations to be more efficient. So the same way that solid waste wanted to be more efficient by being in one property and being able to do multiple functions is what this larger conversation is, but with utilities and Parks and Rec and others in the operations. So I will say, towards that conversation with Kresge, KDHE, who we did receive our permit from, they did provide us a grant, 2 grants, and a total of $180,000 to build that facility, to help build that facility. Another one of the task force recommendations was to develop a comprehensive outreach and education program for the Lawrence community that explained those changes, and we did do that as well. For those of you who remember, their recommended goal was a 50% recycling rate by volume by 2020. So we're getting pretty close to that year. And we are currently, just so you know, at 39-40% recycling rate. The task force talked about reaching that goal by implementing this single stream recycling program. And we did have a lot of conversations that prior to single stream recycling, Lawrence was doing a really good job with recycling because there were a lot of recycling options available. So Walmart had a recycling center that collected a lot of material. There's some other centers here in town as well as our drop-offs that were collecting a lot of material. So we kind of shifted how we were collecting that material, so we're not gonna see a huge jump in our recycling rate by material that was already being recycled just through a center or drop-offs. The one thing that we did know is that if we could get that commercial sector involved in more recycling, that was gonna potentially create kind of a bigger jump towards that goal. And with that, this is, I think, my last slide on the Solid Waste Task Force, is they specifically said in their report, there's a paragraph in there, that they did not have time to adequately address commercial or multifamily customers in their plan. And this text here is directly from their report. They wanted staff and the policymakers to consider enhancement to the services towards the goals of source reduction, increased diversion, and rate equity as new opportunities for more automated collections, recycling, organics collection, and other services arise through the implementation of improvements to the residential services. So again, we've been working on improving that residential services, becoming more efficient to be able to provide or use some of those resources we have to expand into programs for the commercial and multifamily section. I do want to also clarify that the city did go ahead and take that multifamily section off and addressed it at the same time that we provided single family residents the single stream recycling program. So at that time we knew it was important to go ahead and include the apartment complexes. In many communities, apartments are considered commercial customers and would not have gone in that first phase for residential recycling. But the city did make the decision to go ahead and include them and provide that service. All right. So the city HAM contract. In April 2013, the mayor signed a recyclables processing material and marketing service agreement with HAM. Apologize. And the HAM MRF was built just outside, like 5 miles away. The term of agreement is, the initial term is 7 years. And I want to clarify that it wasn't from the moment that the mayor signed, but the contract specifies from the moment that facility opened to accept our material, which is October 2014. So we are 3 years into that initial term. We've got 4 more years on that initial term, and then we have the option for 2 3-year renewals. I do also want to provide you this information. This is all part of the discussion with commercial single stream. Our current single stream fee, when our trucks go to the material recovery facility, we pay $45.71 per ton at the MRF. When we go to the landfill and drop off a load there, we pay $28.92 per ton. Our single stream composition audits and rebates, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So with single stream, we pay HAM, we get our trucks weighed, we pay them. They will give us a rebate, hopefully, some months back, depending on how the markets are doing. And that is calculated, and I get this question a lot. If you take a truck with commingled recycling, how does HAM know, or how do you know what percent in that truck is cardboard and what percent is aluminum cans and what percent is plastics? Because the rebate is calculated by what we drop off. So the composition audits, twice a year, we will select a random amount of trucks and routes to set aside for an audit. Those loads are set to the side. The city is invited into the facility, and the city with HAM will work through, they clean out the whole facility. There's no other material from anybody else, and we go through the sorting process. And then we weigh everything at the end of that audit day. So those loads that were selected for the composition audit, and we try to make sure we don't pick all trucks from East Lawrence, right? We've got a combination of East and West and all sides of town to get a good picture of what our recycling looks like, our material. And we sort through it all, we weigh it, and that's what gives us the percentages of what percentage is cardboard, what percentage is plastic, and so forth. We also started a pilot program with HAM. It's been a little bit over a year now. For those of you who may not know, at our North Lawrence facility, it's called the Swan Building, we do have 2 balers there, and we used to bale all our source separated material, minus the glass. So those bins for cardboard and newspaper and mixed paper that are in the parking lots of Checkers and such, we would take to our facility, and we would bale that material, and then we would work with brokers to sell that material to them. About a year ago, we entered a pilot program with HAM to take this material directly, so we pick up the bin and we go directly to the MRF. We're not paying that $45.71 per ton, and actually we get some revenue back on the source separated material. We do also get some savings in that processing that our staff was doing. But I did want to mention that cardboard, newspaper, and mixed paper is going to the HAM MRF as source separated material. Our glass from our Ripple glass bins are going to a consolidated area at 11th and Haskell, and then we load the trucks directly that go straight to Ripple glass. And our office paper that we collect from our commercial customers is still baled at that Swan facility.
Hey Kathy, just a real quick question. I'm a little bit confused about the cost of $45.71 per ton for the single stream. You say we get some money back on that?
We do.
Do you know what that is?
Not very much. So again, it's a whole set of, and every month it may change as the rebate gets calculated, but I'll give you an example of what 1 month this year and look like, and just kind of follow with me because there's a lot of numbers here. So in February of this year, for example, we took 394.85 tons of single stream to the MRF, and we paid HAM, so the cost of the single stream, is $18,048.59. The rebate was $4,975.11. So there the net is that $13,073. That same month, so we ended up paying them, right, that net cost. But that same month, we also dropped off 143 tons of the source separated. And our cost to HAM for that was $4,292. But our rebate back on that source separated was $17,661. So our net rebate money coming back to the city would be $13,369. Our combined net income and expense from HAM was $295.62.
Okay, thanks.
Should put that in bold letters, gold stars all around it.
And please, stop me if you've got questions. All right, so getting started here on some of that more in-depth conversation about that commercial single stream. We have had conversations with HAM, which started last year, in regards to accepting that material. HAM is definitely on board, has sounded to be on board at all our meetings in regards to taking that material. But we do want to just make sure that everybody understands that single stream coming from the commercial sector may look different, probably is different than what's coming from our residential customers. At times, again, just bigger pieces, cardboard and such. So in our conversations, we've been talking about the possibility for HAM to be able to take this material on about 1 year pilot program to get some data on whether it's, how different it is, how hard is it to process, are they spending a lot of time picking out large items from the single stream. So again, just the sizing of material is gonna matter, and then because how does that flow through their facility and sorting efficiently. But I think both the city and HAM are in agreement that we could kind of work out how it looks like for a year, and not that in a year we would be out of being able to drop off the commercial single stream material, but more in the lines of do we have to tweak maybe the cost scenario or situation with the material. One thing we definitely would need to do is a contract amendment, and at this time HAM is willing to, or this is what we've been talking about, let us drop off the commercial single stream at the same price point as the residential single stream. So that $45.71 would be the commercial single stream as well during this 1-year pilot program. And from the 1 year's worth of data, at that point we could potentially just tweak the program. Maybe the cost would be a little bit more to the city for dropping off that material. All right, I'm going to quickly go over the residential single stream. I wanted to provide an update. Again, we provided the service to both single family and multifamily dwellings back in October of 2014, and you've got some account information there. In 2015, we expanded our single stream recycling service to our schools, our city facilities, and on Mass Street. We did the Recycle on the Go for our downtown pedestrian recycling. At that time, during kind of that last bit of the year, we had mentioned that we were working on and very excited to provide a commercial single stream recycling. So it has been some time since we first mentioned we were working on it, and we continue to work on that program. The Solid Waste Division, number one, I mean, we're always looking at ways to expand and improve our services, but we definitely know there's a need for commercial single stream recycling, and we definitely want to provide that as well. Our schools and city facilities, those programs are going great. There's very little contamination in those loads. Our Massachusetts Street downtown pedestrian recycling, as we predicted, was not going to do as well. So there's a lot of contamination in those pedestrian bins. There's things we've picked out bags to just kind of sort through and see what the issues are, the problems, but full to-go cups of Coke get thrown in there, yogurt and so forth. It's hard to control when it's, not all Lawrence residents. There's a lot of out-of-towners as well that maybe they don't know the single stream recycling program. And there's a lot of confusion too in the downtown businesses. There's not a lot of to-go containers that are recyclable that would be part of that list of acceptable items for the single stream recycling program. But at the time, the city knew it was important to offer recycling for the pedestrians. It's just they really do get filled up with a lot of trash. So unfortunately, not a lot of recycling is occurring from those. And again, I just mentioned the apartments were already taken care of. For those apartments that you do see, or sometimes you get questions like why, if a tenant from an apartment complex says, well, my apartment doesn't offer me recycling services, all apartments are paying for the single stream recycling program. So it was mandatory pay, voluntary participation when that program got started. Some apartments started with the recycling bins. They called us up and said, absolutely, come drop off the bins. And they've had so many issues with contamination that they've kind of given up. We did things like post flyers on the doors from all their tenants. The management of the apartments were cleaning out contamination or bags of trash from time to time. And for some of the apartments, they just weren't able to successfully keep those recycling bins without that contamination. It seems to happen a lot more too during the move-outs. So as trash dumpsters get full, or as the tenants who are moving out just don't have time, they just drop off their trash at the most convenient or closest bin to them. And unfortunately, they were trashing those recycling bins. So we continue to work with apartments. We actually have developed, we have a staff who really spends a lot of time talking to those apartment managers and seeing what solutions there are to help with that contamination. One thing we recently produced is a kind of a reusable bag. It's got a handle at the bottom of the bag, so tenants can have the bag near their kitchen. They can throw their recyclables in there. The bags have printed what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and the handle makes it easy drop off. So one of the number one contaminants in these apartment complex bins are the fact that the recyclables are bagged. So again, it's just for convenience. So these reusable bags, we're monitoring to see if the contamination at those apartments that we targeted will go down, and if these bags are actually helpful, especially having that list of items that can go in the bin. For our single family residents, they have the cart with the lid and the sticker, and they have it there easy and accessible, what's accepted and what's not accepted. So apartments, it just gets a little bit harder when you're removed from that bin. So hopefully we'll see some improvements. Some of the numbers for our residential single stream. So back in 2014, that was not a full year of collection, but we did collect 1,227 tons of single stream. The following year was 5,327 tons. In 2016, we collected 5,428, so just slightly more. And in 2017, so far up to August, we've collected 3,692 tons. So in approximately 3 years, it's been 15,674 tons. I wanted to show you a little bit more information of how that relates to the other recyclable material or material we're collecting for composting, what that single stream portion of it is. So in 2014, we collected 14,199 tons. That's of recyclable materials, like through the drop-offs and the corrugated cardboard program. And then also the material we collected, the yard waste for our compost facility. And of that number, that 14,199, 1,227 is the single stream. So for example, in 2016, 5,428 tons of the 21,940 tons is the single stream. So about a fourth of what we're collecting is that single stream from our residents. The biggest portion and impact on those numbers that we have is our yard waste collection program. And second to that is the single stream now, and third is the corrugated cardboard program.
Kathy, can you go back one slide really quickly? Okay. All right. Never mind, I'm sorry, I misread that. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. All right, recycling markets. I don't have a whole lot of slides about the markets, but as you all know, markets are not very stable. And this year, we have seen a decline. We could probably talk about recycling markets for 2 hours, and Charlie could talk about it for 5 hours with you all. But what it does is a little bit unpredictable at times. And I did want to bring up something that the waste industry has been talking about a lot for the last few months. And I think I referred to it as the China waste ban by the end of 2017 in the memo. But I did want to mention that the Chinese government did notify the World Trade Organization in July of this year of its intent to restrict the import of 24 types of solid waste by the end of this year. And I think of those listed, the biggest ones and what I'm hearing a lot, there's a lot of conversations of the unknowns and people don't understand what it all means. So right now we're in the middle of it, and the two items kind of concern that I've heard a lot is that mixed paper, which a lot of communities have a big portion of collection of that, and then also plastics, especially those 3 through 7s, and then the rigid plastics as well. So it's something definitely that we're keeping an eye on. It has already made an impact. Even before this was announced, there were some commodities that had already significantly dropped though. So this is not the only thing that's affecting what our rebates and where we're going or headed. Earlier this year, the corrugated cardboard took a hit and it continues to decline. So I just wanted to mention that right now we're in a little bit of a unknown situation. I have had conversations, and what's important is always to have conversations with your MRF about how easy they're able to move materials, and it hasn't been so easy for some materials. So I do know that our plastics number 3 through 7 have been on a standstill per se since Easter of this year. So we are currently storing the material with nowhere to push it to. I mean, this is a big deal. We've gone through this before. There's a lot of ups and downs. If you remember back in the end of 2008, there was a rapid overnight decline where a lot of actually communities shut down their recycling services, their programs at that time. We were currently baling our material and working with brokers to sell it, and brokers were not taking our material, so we also had to store material for some time. We had come to the commission about, you know, the kind of worst case scenario was having to take some of the material to the landfill, which we don't ever want to say or do, but you kind of have to start brainstorming what your options are when material isn't quite moving. And I do know that Charlie has a lot of knowledge and information on this, so if you do have questions, you know, please take advantage that Charlie is here tonight. And the information we're getting for why the Chinese government has made you know, the statement is, again, due to the quality of the material they're getting. It's too contaminated. There were some national articles that gained some momentum and popularity towards the end of last year and earlier this year, that we, you know, the residents or the generators of the recycling are the ones at fault because we're not putting the right thing in the right container. So, you know, we're putting a lot of contaminants into that recycling bin that shouldn't end up there. And of course, the facilities do have a sorting machinery and staff, but sometimes can only sort so much. So if we're doing it well from the start, so we're the generators and we're putting the right material in the right containers, in the recycling container, then we keep our loads pretty clean. And with HAM, we have had a lot of conversations. HAM's material is pretty clean, so they're feeling a little bit positive in this kind of unknown time that they're able to move material because of how clean it is. I believe we're at less than 3% contamination with our bales, which is excellent. And that really is true kudos to our residential customers who are recycling the right way, putting the right materials in there. So impacts to consider, rebate decrease. So we've already seen that with our OCC's old corrugated cardboard, and we will continue to see a hit in that. It may take a while to move material. So like I mentioned, those plastics number 3 through 7. I do believe there is a facility that is likely to reopen and start taking materials either later this year or beginning of next year. But if that doesn't happen, again, we just have to continue to have these conversations with him on what those other options are. So we may need to consider what those other options will be. Whether the city has property to store material until the markets rebound, or again, that landfill conversation with some of the material. And even potentially, I've already been seeing some communities that have stopped accepting certain types of recyclables in their curbside program. All right, any questions on the recycling markets before I move on?
Was it designed to be a revenue neutral? Was that the task force goal, or is that a goal?
Right, they wanted a sustainable program, so revenue neutral.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of our work items for 2017, and this is definitely more recent, and I'm just going to go through a lot of these updates that we made this year and explain a little bit of that reasoning or where we're pulling out some efficiency. So first thing is we did update or change our ordinance so that we could start our collection services in residential neighborhoods at 6. It really made a difference. Previously it was 7 a.m. and on Mondays it was 6 a.m. so it wasn't consistent throughout the week. We had crews showing up at different times in the morning. Now we've got a big work group that all gets started at the same time. They work through until all assignments are complete, and it's working out well. We also transitioned to a 5-day collection schedule. So what we had set up was a citywide collection of yard waste on Monday that had already been 2-3 years where it was no longer a sustainable structure that way. During the peak times of yard waste, our crews were out there for 10 hours with some of the hardest labor, again, just because of the picking up of the containers from the ground that are pretty heavy with yard waste. And that collection system was nowhere near automated. So we didn't have a mandatory cart. These are rear load trucks, and we were holding on to a lot of rear load trucks. It's kind of one of the things that was stopping us from trading some of these out for the ASL one-arm trucks, because we needed all those trucks on that Monday big collection day. We've now spread yard waste as well as trash and recycling. We basically split the city in 5 sections. And so a customer gets their trash and yard waste and recycling collected on the same day. Trash and recycling is weekly, trash and yard waste is weekly collection, and recycling is every other week collection. But the city is split into 5 sections now, and they're pretty much balanced out now. There's not a day that's a 10-hour collection day and then the other days that are 6 hours or so forth. And the need for, when we ran yard waste on Mondays, that's 11 rear load trucks, plus our commercial rear load trucks, that was another 5. So 16 trucks on Monday to run those collections. Since this transition, we've been able to, again, our focus has been to collect trash and recycling for our residential customers with as many of those ASLs, and I have numbers on how many we have and where we need to, our target is for increased efficiency in that collection. We still do have some rear load trucks. There's actually 2 that run each day. That's for yard waste. That's what it got down to per day. And then we have our commercial rear load trucks. There's a lot of movement in that as well, because we have been switching our rear load dumpsters to front load dumpsters at a lot of commercial sites, and I've got some numbers on that. again, creating huge efficiencies with a one-person operation truck. And not only creating those efficiencies, but also dumpsters are also the other collection that's really heavy and hard on the body as you push and pull such heavy containers. The yard waste set-out containers was also updated this year, as you know. Probably received a lot of emails from our citizens, and I will tell you, these items, these last two bullets that I've been covering were pretty hard on residents. You know, the change of a collection day and also the type of containers that they could set out with, and we 100% understood how hard that was, and it was a hard decision to make, but we're moving towards automation and efficiency in collection. So sometimes you do have to make some hard decisions in which at the moment it seemed, you know, like for some of our residents, they were just really upset and couldn't really get through with that, you know, the new collection guidelines. At this time, we have actually not been receiving very many calls anymore or emails in regards to the changes. Our residents have adjusted, and some of them have actually called us back and told us they actually really appreciate that all three services are provided on the same day, that they no longer have to think about the 2 days for set out. So we have started receiving some of that good feedback. And for those that, you know, weren't using the yard waste carts before, they have found real good use for them, and, you know, simpler to roll to the curb. So on the yard waste set out containers, those changes were to eliminate the personal cans and eliminate the personal carts, and just to have our collection be provided or for residents to set out in the yard waste cart that they purchase through the city or the paper yard waste bags. We do still accept bundled brush, so some residents set it out that way. If we want to continue to automate this collection, yard waste, we would need to make some recommendations of making that yard waste cart mandatory. At this time, it is not mandatory. There are a lot of residents that just set out yard waste bags on the ground for us to pick up. But if we wanted to put, you know, the one-arm trucks into this collection, that's just kind of information of where we would need to go to continue to automate. There are some communities that have the carts and then allow for additional bags if there's, you know, additional bag leaves, where the driver can reload those bags into the cart and then tip the cart a second time or a third time.
I got a quick question, Kathy. The containers that were privately owned before on the yard waste, at one point you had a pickup for those. Are you gonna do that again at any time?
Yeah.
Just to get rid of those?
Absolutely. So residents continue to call us. Still last week we had a resident call and say, how do I get rid of this old trash can? And all they have to do is, you know, call us, let us know, and we tell them to put the X on there so that our crews know to take it with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have sold 6,000 yard waste carts since the change. The separation of commercial and residential, this is just kind of that conversation about when we moved our ASL trucks, our one-arm trucks, into that residential collection for trash, then they are not able to service dumpsters along the way. Sometimes there's businesses in the area where they're picking up residential. So there is a split that happens at that point. For our rear load trucks, they were weaving in and out of residential and commercial, picking up both before.
Kathy, on our program now, going back on the 5-day pickup collection schedule, we're picking up again on holidays. All the holidays, if it's during the week, that's a normal pickup day. what are our costs? Do you have information on our costs there? And are we having to pay an additional cost for hams to open, or are they already open on that holiday, or how are we handling that? Trying to get an idea if it's cost effective to pick up on that holiday or pick, you know, obviously a Saturday, you know, that's later in the week. Is it more efficient or less money to do that?
Sure. So we are, and actually I had a slide, maybe it's the next one. I'll skip to this one. So we are collecting residential trash and recycling on holidays, except for Christmas Day and New Year's Day and Thanksgiving Day. The day after Thanksgiving we collect. But those 3 days we do not collect, and collection is pushed one day out into that Saturday. All other holidays we're working. One thing to note is we were working all those other holidays already with our commercial trucks. So we had staff and supervisors that were collecting commercial trash and the corrugated cardboard. We're now having additional staff step in on those holidays. The ham landfill is open on those holidays, as they have been for years, so nothing changed this year. The ham MRF is not open on those holidays, and we do not drop off our loads that day. So they do their collection. We are trying to get crews out as quickly as possible. They don't have to stay a full 8-hour day on the holiday. They've been wrapping up in 5-6 hours, and again, we put additional staff to help. They can skip their lunch that day, and then they're not taking that drive to that MRF to drop off the materials. They drop off the next morning when the MRF is open. So there's not additional costs with that.
Our new trucks that with the arm, the pickup, I mean, obviously more parts to break. Our new equipment, is it, have we had it long enough to be able to look at cost comparisons? And I know it's a big picture thing because of, you know, the number of people that work on it and stuff. The equipment holding up okay?
So you're correct that the one-arm trucks have a lot more maintenance and parts and pieces that can break. And we have had some stressful collection days. And I will tell you, our supervisors and our collection staff work their magic on those days. We've had days where 4 of our ASL trucks out of 8 are down, and that's a huge blow for that day. And everybody pulls together to collect that material. This is a reason actually why, and I flipped over back to this slide, in 2018, we are looking at bringing in 3 additional ASL trucks. So we're not very efficient when we don't have that backup in that type of truck, right? The ASL truck. When we have, you know, we have 2 backup trucks, but if 4 of our trucks break down, we're flooding the areas to get collection done. Trash needs to be picked up, and so does recycling, with our rear load trucks that are on standby. That takes a lot of personnel and then trucks to go get it, because ASL trucks are a lot more efficient in collection than a rear load truck is. We definitely, and we've had these conversations with the management team, definitely need more ASL trucks as backup. This year we also tried a combination of a truck. So we need the backup for our front load type trucks. Again, 1-person operation that gets those front load dumpsters, but we needed a backup for the ASL function. So we purchased, this is the first time we purchased one, a front load truck with a Corrado can. What that is it looks like it's like a dumpster that goes, the forks will pick up this dumpster.
Wow.
And it has that tipping ability. So it looks different than the one-arm trucks, right? But it does the same function. It's a little bit tighter in some areas because it doesn't have the reach, but it certainly can be a backup for that function and for the front load when the front load trucks are down. So we're looking at creative ways of being able to get the trash picked up, the recycling. I went back to this slide that I had skipped over. So I want to mention again, we're looking to,
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a follow-up.
Okay.
How long did it take to get those 4 trucks back when you had 4 down at once?
some of them are easy fixes. Our city garage is able to turn them around in a few hours. If they break down, noon hour, likely not to have them to finish collection. At times, at the one I mentioned with the 4 trucks down, the trucks have to be sent back to the manufacturer shop. So they can take a week or so sometimes to get them back and running.
So
Before-
all four of them went back to the manufacturer?
Not all of them, no.
Oh,
Yeah, some were quick fixes and others sometimes take a lot more downtime. Okay. I did want to mention, again, we've been really busy working at more efficient and automated collections, and one big piece of that is our commercial trash collection, which was predominantly with these rear load dumpsters and the rear load truck function with a 3-person team. In 2016, you can see on here at 54 locations, so those are 54 businesses, we switched the service from rear load to front load dumpsters with a total of 59 dumpsters. So some of those locations had more than one, as all as it's saying. In 2017 so far, we have switched 109 locations, and that totaled 127 dumpsters. So where we had some days with 5 rear load trucks collecting commercial trash, we've gone down to 4, and actually there's a day we've gone down to 3. Mondays and Fridays are very busy commercial pickup days because of the weekend, and the restaurants and bars and such have a lot of business over the weekends. We continue to automate this process and make it a focus. The ASL trucks, there's a bullet on here. So in 2013, we bought our first 2 trucks. This was with that whole conversation with the Solid Waste Task Force and containerizing our trash collection. We needed to containerize trash collection before we could, move on to purchase these trucks and utilize them. In 2014, the reason why there's 4 there is 3 of them were purchased with a budget for the new single stream recycling program. And then the 4th was an ASL for backup for trash and recycling. Another way we find efficiencies, and we made this decision back when we purchased those recycling trucks, is that we wanted the exact same looking truck. So we don't have white trucks for recycling and blue trucks for trash. We don't want that concept that people would then say, ooh, a blue truck came to collect my recycling, which means it went to the landfill. They look identical. All they have, the recycling trucks, is a magnet that says Lawrence Recycles. We also made some magnets for the yard waste, now that yard waste is collected during the week, so that residents know that's the yard waste truck. There's still some confusion as to which truck just came through, but again, we want to make sure that these trucks aren't separate or only for their particular collections. They're intertwined, because when we have 2 of maybe the recycling ASL trucks go down, we're going to grab, a standby over here, whether it's trash and recycling, doesn't matter. We're going to slap the magnets and get that job done.
those ASL trucks for 2017 and 2018, were those listed in our CIP?
They were listed, the 2017, it's the one ASL with FL stands for front load with Can, that was in the CIP. And for 2018, 2 of the 3 ASLs are listed in the CIP. We're currently working on amendment for that 3rd.
To add it to the CIP?
Yeah. Yes. I will also mention that even though we order the trucks now, they take a year to a year and a half to be delivered.
What do they run a truck, approximately?
It's about $250,000.
250.
We do a trade. Usually a rear load truck we get about 40,000 for,
Okay.
without looking at the numbers,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Mhm. So going back to the item Commissioner Amix brought up, in May 1st of this year, we also made some internal changes. One thing was the employee work schedule changed. Our staff is now working their full 8 hours to get paid 8 hours. Previously, before May 1st, crew could get done with their route and their assignments to the satisfaction of their supervisor and clock out and go home. So sometimes that happened at 7 hours and 15 minutes, and so we would add some incentive hours at the end of the week to bring their work schedule to a 40-hour work week. It's operated like that for many, many years, the Solid Waste Division did, and May 1st, that changed. Employees were notified of this change 6 months prior. So there was a November 2nd meeting last year in which they were notified. Advice given to me from another solid waste manager that went through a similar type of change was to let your employees know as soon as possible so that they can make their plans. We have had some staffing challenges, with the change and afterwards, and a lot of turnover. We did move to, like I mentioned, the 8-hour work shift with a 30-minute lunch break. They weren't taking a lunch break before. Most of them work from 6 a.m. to 2:30 with that half-hour lunch break. Sometimes we do go into overtime. Again, assignments need to be completed, collection needs to be completed, and the challenges are, the need for the trucks and personnel fill the vacancy positions. The holiday work schedules, again, we were working holidays before, we're just working them with a few more staff. And those start at 6 a.m. now instead of 5. And the Saturday work shift, we actually had a crew that worked before May 1st, Tuesday through Saturday. Their Saturday was a pretty short day, and that was eliminated, so all crews work Monday through Friday, and Saturdays on rotation. We have started also this year having the supervisor that Saturday be the driver of one of the trucks. That reduces the number of personnel we need that day for collection.
You said we're having challenges with turnover. What's your biggest? What are you hearing the biggest issue is on that? As to why?
Yeah, the announcement of the loss of the incentive hour system was a pretty big impact. And you may have heard from our employees who are upset about it, and it's not easy. It's not what they were used to, but
So is that stabilizing now then? Since you've gotten past that?
it is, yeah. We have hired on a lot of new employees as well over the last 3-4 months, and we continue to bring in new employees. We have 2 drivers starting on Monday. We did, when we posted our Operator 1 position, we actually opened it to internal and external applicants. In the past, it was just an internal applicant type position. So there are 2 new external employees starting in the Operator 1 position. We've had to do that once in the past, or that I remember, but we had a need for a lot of drivers. We did promote 2 of our internal applicants into those driver positions, and we're really, really pushing for a lot of training and encouragement of our new loaders. We actually changed the job description a little bit to say in the job bulletin that within the first 6 months of employment to pass their probationary period, they do need to go through the driver training that we offer and get their CDL license. So it's a requirement now, as it wasn't before. The need for drivers It's much greater now. About 2 months ago, we actually combined 2 loader positions to create a new operator 2 position, the highly skilled driver of all truck type. And as we continue to automate with these one-person trucks, operated trucks, we will see more of that movement to the need of drivers and less for the loader positions.
Kathy, one other question, you know, and I'm somebody, I don't want anybody to get scared when I ask this, because I think that we have one of the best programs around, I really have, and I've been somebody that's been very supportive of it. Do we do any look at how we measure up to private haulers that are out there right now, so that we stay on top to make sure that our program is the best value around?
We definitely, every time we're considering the rate conversation, we do a rate study. So we do select a lot of communities that have municipally ran programs, but we also look at others like in Manhattan and Wichita with the private sector and what type of services they're offering, so that for the value, right? So that's what's important, you know, just listing out what those services are. That's provided to the commission with that memo packet from the Public Works Department.
Okay.
Yes. Right. I will also mention in the topic of employees and some of that turnover, we also had a lot of staff, and most of them were field supervisors who were very close to retirement. When I stepped into this position of solid waste manager, I was told and I knew that within 5 years of being in this position that I would likely, you know, lose to retirement 5 of our field supervisors, and 3 of the 5 have retired. They each have, the latest one was 42 years with the city solid waste division. That's a lot of knowledge. And right before him, 2 of our field supervisors in 2015 retired, each with 30 years. We're also a few months away from Anita's retirement. She has been working for the solid waste division for 40 years, and she truly is the brain of the solid waste division. So our efforts have been to hire on new staff who are learning from these folks who have a lot of knowledge, who've you know, seen the division go through a lot of change through many, many years. And you know, we've put great focus on non-supervisory staff and how we can provide training for them to become supervisors. Again, just for that, making sure we've got that next group that will get promoted into those positions. So just wanted to mention that over the last 2 years, we've lost a lot of years. Actually, all 5 supervisors together, I was putting the numbers together, it's 171 years of service that those 5 field supervisors have provided.
Last question or comment, and I don't think it was you, but I think it was Tammy when the changes came up earlier this year that were going to be necessary. One of the comments that was made, and I think she made it about, you know, that our program was not sustainable, and I wrote that down. And you know, with the way the program, you know, the way that we were carrying out the function and the service, with the changes that we've been asked to make and the commitments that we've been asked to come up with on purchases of new equipment and those kind of things, is our program sustainable now without a whole lot of other changes that are coming along?
Absolutely. I will tell you that the biggest impact and change was moving from the 1 day of yard waste collection to that 5-day split, to be able to, again, move that function, that rear load function out. It's given us a green light to continue to automate our services at a faster speed, and being able to purchase these 3 ASL trucks is going to be a huge help for our collections. We actually just received a truck last month. It's an ASL truck, and for the one that for this year, and we're getting ready to put it on a full route. And again, just kind of redesign the routes a little bit, take some of that rear load function out, and plug that truck in. All right, just a few more items, and then commercial single stream. So work items for 2017. We are very close to the transition of our notification system. Our notification system is called Notify. It was created by a city staff person who is no longer working for the city quite a few years ago. He wrote the code, he built it. This is that function where the residents get a text message or an email letting them know that it's their recycling week, or they can also select messages for yard waste and trash. And on the holidays, it would tell them what day to set out if there was a change in schedule. We are working with a company called Recollect, and it is about to launch here pretty soon, within the next month. It's going to be a text notification, phone call, an email, and also an app. And the reason why we've transitioned, without that person who has the knowledge on the system, and the system also being somewhat unstable, we needed a solution, and a pretty quick solution. Kevin Powell with the City of Lawrence, he was able to carry us through those route changes and day changes in May, but we did have a lot of frustration happening during that time because some residents continued to get the wrong message. The system was not perfect. He was just kind of that bandage over it, making sure it could get through that. And he, again, doesn't know all the code, but he worked on it pretty hard and stayed a lot of evenings and over the weekend of those changes to make sure that residents got their notification corrected.
Excuse me, Kathy. Will people who are currently receiving the notified messages need to do something when the transition's made to the new system?
They will not, and that was very important when we talked to the companies that offer this type of service,
Right.
that it would be a smooth transition where they'd be carried over to the new system.
Thank you.
And we do have over 4,000 customers who are signed up for the notifications. Another item we had for 2017 was to work on the feasibility of expanding the compost program. And to that point, we have worked with Helen and the food systems plan. We've kind of contributed to one of their chapters, and we're having ongoing conversations. Again, food waste collection is out in the future, but just wanted to mention that. And another item that's really important when we talk about collection efficiency is software that we have been looking at and we continue to work on for our trucks. So route optimization, kind of the turn-by-turn directions. A lot of times, we've got a driver off on vacation and a substitute driver who doesn't know that route very well, and it takes them more time to complete that route than it does the actual driver of that route. So software will, again, increase our efficiency, improve fleet safety. We're talking about, also truck maintenance and customer service. The software is not only on the trucks, it's also at our kind of admin building where they're able to see where the truck is on route, not just with the GPS, but what they've collected. And if they didn't collect at a certain location, they immediately know at that time why it wasn't collected. So the driver would have the opportunity to write a note or just hit a button that says, contamination for recycling, for example, or even potentially take a photo in front of that residence. It's a big conversation of something we are working on. Another point to that is just we currently have a very unstable old database where we have a lot of our customer information and where we do our roll-off billing from. So we're working in coordination with the finance department. They've been working through the process, and they have soft resources as a consultant. we're actually meeting with them as well and working with them to make sure that we're stepping into a program that will speak to each other, and that there's a bridge there, not separate. Our meeting with Soft Resources is the first week in November, so it's coming up pretty soon.
Kathy, let's take just a very brief break here before you launch into commercial recycling.
Absolutely.
Okay, just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and bring it on back. Thank you for that.
All right, so really quick, we're gonna go through commercial recycling. So current options, we have a corrugated recycling collection program that the city provides. We have over 500 businesses participating in this program, and it's provided at no additional fee. Our office paper recycling collection program, we have about 90 customers, and this program will phase out with commercial single stream recycling, so the paper will be collected with a single stream. Commercial customers also have options for recycling drop-off at those bins we talked about with cardboard, newspaper, and mixed paper, glass. Cans for the Community also has aluminum can bins. There are centers in town, Tolton Haskell Recycle Center, Advantage Metals, that businesses drop off material too. And Ham has a drop-off for single stream recycling as well. Their drop-off is not at their MRF, it's at the landfill. And at the landfill, they have a recycling bin there. Customers pay a small fee and they can drop off that material. CLO, Community Living Opportunities, is one of the curbside programs that transition from residential to commercial. They're limited in size, but they do service commercial customers currently for single stream recycling at a fee. And large businesses, a lot of the recycling that's going on in the commercial sector is not touched on by the city. If you think of Hallmark, those bigger facilities are baling their material and using recycling brokers to move and sell material. Our commercial single stream recycling program, we have been actively in this conversation about providing it as a voluntary subscription-based program, so not mandatory. It would be provided at various service levels and fees, and those service levels and fees would match the trash structure. So the trash has the different sizes of bins, 2 yard, 3 yard, and a certain price point for this. If it's picked up once a week, twice a week, you know, the prices increase. So for commercial single stream, that would be the price too. So the 2 yard going once a week would be that same cost as the trash 2 yard going once a week. The cost is for collection, to get the truck, the personnel, the fuel to that location. And as you know, the tip fee is more at the MRF. Downtown businesses, just wanted to mention that there's a little bit different structure there potentially. And we are planning for an incremental rollout. Operational costs as the program grows, collection containers, trucks, personnel. We currently have trucks and personnel where we could start utilizing next year to collect some of the commercial single stream. But if the program gets large enough, we would have additional costs for trucks and personnel. The challenges, every site may be unique. And space issues for this extra container or containers is also going to be a challenge. So in my conversations with the planning department, if a business wants to, you know, participate in this program and they need to use up a parking spot to place this container to expand their kind of enclosure area, they would have to go through that site plan process. In addition, screening is required, which also is part of that site plan process. Collection inefficiencies, so the kind of information there is that when you're picking up residential, it's one customer after another, after another, after another. Commercial collection, they're spaced out. So while one day they're collecting on 6th and Alabama, the next location might be at 6th and Wakarusa to pick up that single stream commercial. The downtown, again, lack of space. Frequency of collection, likely because the containers would be smaller in the downtown, would need to be more frequent collection. Currently, we do pick up trash Monday through Saturday in the downtown area, as well as the corrugated cardboard. and some challenges there with contamination. The next steps. So continue staying updated with the recycling markets. As you know, I mentioned earlier, we're kind of in an area of unknown and some drops in those commodity prices, and we don't fully understand the effects of that China waste ban. We also need to continue working on the City Ham contract amendment, continue our conversations with our businesses, complete our business plan, and launch the program Communications. This is my last slide. I did want to mention that we are working with some non-residential or what can be considered commercial customers that we hope to work up a plan to provide them the recycling starting as early as 2018. But the reality is that in the spring of 2018 is when we would have a full business plan and implementation for you all to consider and launch.
So you're already working on that business plan?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? I was kind of wondering if in your business plan, if you're looking at doing a pilot program, downtown for just on weekends or something to pick up glass or something similar to that. Have you been in contact with DLI and the, what was the name of it? Lawrence Restaurant Association? What was their name?
Downtown Restaurant Association.
Yeah, to figure out how to do that maybe as a pilot program?
Sure, I have had some conversations with DLI and also had a presentation with some of the business owners in the downtown area a couple of years ago, and continued conversations with some of them. We have considered the possibility of providing just glass recycling bins. Again, the more and more bins we put in the downtown area, the more kind of confined restrictions we have on that. But Ripple Glass does have a glass-only recycling program that they have launched in the Kansas City area that we have, seen or looked at some of that information, and it is a possibility. It doesn't reach that single-stream recycling solution, but it certainly does take a big, heavy recyclable material out of the waste stream.
I guess I shouldn't have excluded cans from my question either. So yeah, single stream is definitely important. I made it sound like glass was my only concern, but of course glass and cans are an issue.
There are currently quite a few businesses in the downtown, restaurants and bars, that are collecting aluminum cans, and they are donating their cans to Cans for the Community, a nonprofit in town that has volunteers that pick up those cans. So there's a lot of recycling of that item currently in the downtown.
So the business plan that you're working on, what kind of pilot program does it have? Or do you have a pilot program in there?
We don't have a pilot program in there. There's a pilot with Ham on, making sure that that first year that the materials collected from the commercial sector are not causing a whole lot of issues with kind of the flow of the material through the facility and such. But that's kind of a separate.
So if I'm understanding right, so what you're saying is when you first offer the commercial recycling, it'll be basically citywide?
I had it on my slide about an incremental rollout.
Okay, so maybe what I'm calling pilot program isn't the right language that you all are using.
Sure. I will give you an example of some of that kind of commercial customer that we're working with to find a solution pretty quick. KU has fraternity and sororities that aren't considered the multifamily apartments. They have shared rooms and such, but it is residential living. So we are working with them to price out the dumpster for service for their single stream. We'd want to go that route.
Any other questions? Do you have questions?
So the soonest we think this incrementally can be rolled out would be spring of 2018?
Correct.
Sooner the better. Yeah. Appreciate your work on this, Kathy.
Thank you.
I guess that's it for questions.
Okay.
Okay. So your presentation is complete where you haven't plan on having any other people speak? Or
correct.
should we just go to public comment?
That's correct. There's no other speakers.
Okay,
Just staff in case there were questions you wanted to ask them.
thank you. All right, well, let's go to public comment then. Okay, does anyone have any comments on this item on our agenda? Okay, so we'll close public comment. Any last thoughts?
So what will be the first item the commission sees as part of the commercial recycling process?
I'd be happy to bring the business plan and additional information to a city commission meeting if that's the process.
We'll probably run into it before we support.
I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping to get out of this, is kind of the idea of where we were going from here. But
Well, it sounds like you already have the public education piece kind of planned out for downtown Lawrence and the restaurants and bars and such. Okay.
So what kind of feedback are you getting back from the public, like downtown? What kind of feedback are you getting?
In regards to the commercial single stream, we've all been getting a lot of emails and definitely interest in the program. I do think that some businesses are thinking the program is going to be provided at no additional cost. And, you know, we've been letting everybody know that there is a cost to collection. We definitely need to recover the cost for it. And that's why I mentioned that fee structure being very similar to trash, as it's just another type of collection. We figured out what those costs are. The only difference is where the material is going.
Okay, great.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions?
yeah, Charles, do you mind answering some questions about hams?
No problem, no problem.
I guess this evening we've been dealing predominantly with the input end, and you deal with the output end. Last week I had the opportunity to go out to the MRF facility there, and I talked with Jeremy Ham out there, and he felt pretty confident that in terms of capacity, that you have plenty of capacity for a commercial operation. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we oversized the system sufficiently so that we could add in more materials, and we were very confident that we could handle this. There are a few feedstock issues we have to look at, but it's nothing that we can't handle. So we're very excited to get started at this. You guys really do, when you know, Commissioner Amex, when you talk about where is Lawrence now and how sustainable it is, it's in a much different situation than it was 4 or 5 years ago, with combination of what the city has done, with the way they've contracted out and pushed the private enterprise to come up with competitive solutions, and the solutions that we've come up with. You're really gonna have to push out pretty far to find your competition. You're gonna have to push out to Boulder, you're gonna have to push out to Portland, you're gonna have to push out to Seattle to compare. And when you start seeing rates in the 30s, 40s, 60s, in Seattle, $90 a household, you're gonna see that you're pretty competitive. I think that Lawrence is ready for that next step. We hear a lot of businesses asking for commercial single stream. They're not asking for commercial source separated. They want to put everything in a container. There's alleyways with plenty of room for containers. You can convert OCC cardboard containers. You can do all kinds of things. And so we're very excited to help move that sustainability needle and move through all this.
And your group has been consulted with regards to our plan?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
We meet regularly with city staff to talk through engineering issues, contractual issues, and there really isn't anything. They're good conversations.
Okay. And are you happy with the pace this is moving at? I mean, it seems kind of like you're waiting for us.
We're ready.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Remind me where your glass goes, where our glass goes?
So the glass, when it's processed, we generate two streams. One of them's about 20% and one's about 80%. So the glass that comes in, imagine 20% of it and 80% of it. About 20% of it gets ground up into small amounts by going into the container, going through your trucks, and going through our system. And that's what we call the glass fines. And that'll go and be mixed with a rock product at one of our mines. It's in Eudora. And so that'll actually be used in base products. So that's saving, that's a soil conservation method. It's saving mining. So that's about 20% of it. About 80% of it goes to Ripple glass. So when we talk about Ripple and direct hauling and all these things, it's, do you want to put it in a container and have it very convenient and go out and go to Ripple through our system? Or do you want to take it to a Ripple container? We're fairly agnostic on it. Actually, our contract calls for, really most things to be handled through our system, but we allow that. But that's what happens with our glass. It goes to Ripple 8 times out of 10, and the other stuff has a beneficial reuse. So it's a good system.
Thank you.
Well, it's certainly a cool facility to tour. I think I toured it a couple of years ago or so, but I hope all of you have had a chance to do that.
Yeah. So anyway, we'd love to work with you on commercial single stream, and love to do anything we can do to help out, whether it's helping out staff with anything. Even when you were talking about equipment earlier, we have a lot of experience on trying to get to best-in-class or world-class equipment metrics. So if you guys need help, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. We know a few things about iron and moving parts and trying to keep them running.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Charlie, based on the collection that we have now, how many households can our MRF take care of?
So right now, our MRF is really running at about 1/4 to 35% capacity.
We got plenty of room. Huh?
Oh, there's plenty of room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
Thanks.
you. All right, any other questions? Okay, well, I think this concludes our discussion.
Are we gonna?
No
Are we
votes?
gonna have a discussion about it, or are we just shutting it off at questions?
No, I thought we were having a discussion.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Well, I was out of questions, but I'd still like to.
Please, let's hear your thoughts.
Well, I'd really like to see the business plan brought before us. I mean, I'd kind of like to see where we're going with this. I appreciate the update on where we're at right now, but I was kind of hoping for a little more specific, what's going to happen and when. That was kind of the whole point of calling this meeting, is that for the past 2 years, it's been a consistent, we'll have something next year, we'll have something next year. And I understand it takes money, it takes resources, personnel, it takes all that. But I would kind of like to have an idea where we can tell people when we have members of the community, because I'm hearing from them, and I know you guys are too. I want to have something that I can tell them other than, well, 2018, because in 2016 I told them 2017. And if we've got something in front of us, we can actually show them and talk about the incremental rollout more specifically. I feel like it feels like a true answer instead of, the old kick in the can.
Well, I think Kathy just told us that the next thing that was going to be coming to the commission was going to be the business plan. So I
Okay.
assume that is what we're going to be expecting to
Yeah,
happen,
that's
right?
Do you have a
That's what
timeline
I
for that,
understood.
Kathy?
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that.
2018.
Did you say the beginning of 18?
Yeah, come on up for the business plan to review before the rollout.
Right, so could be December of this year or January of 2018.
So in the next couple months.
And I think with that piece of information, we're going to be able to have that discussion that I think that you're desiring, and be able to formulate, where we're going to be on the plan. So I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm good.
I'm looking forward to it.
Again, I just appreciate all the work you guys have done on this and how you keep moving forward with the sustainability part. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just need to figure out how to recycle hair.
All right, so now perhaps we're ready to conclude. All right,
Sorry.
so we already moved to adjourn, so we don't do that. So I think we're all done here. Thanks, everyone.
Just gonna recycle hair.
Recycle.